1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
All right, ready? Okay. According to NASA, light can move at 186,000 miles per second, which is fast. So when you go to the computer and you want to use it, what do you expect it to be? Fast, right? Do you remember back in the day when you used to have dial-up and the little noise and you'd have to wait for it, and that was pretty fast to us then. Well, now, internet's really fast. It's actually faster than what you can use now. We actually can test up to 1 terabyte, where dial-up was 56K. So after 20 years in the industry of working at a communications company, I've seen it go from dial-up all the way up to fiber optics, which is what we have in this house and most of you have at home. How fiber works is a light, literally a light is sent down a cable from the central office. That light then goes to what they call a PON card, which stands for Passive Optical Network. A fiber cable then gets sent from the central office to a hub. Now the cable that they use is this cable right here. So just to tell you, before with copper you can get how many pairs? About 32 pairs in one cable. In one of these little strands right here, there's 32 fibers. 32 fibers can connect one PON card, which is 32 customers. So if you can picture how many customers you can get from just one of these strands. And this strand is made of glass. So I could actually snap this and break it, and it would actually just be like dropping a glass on the ground. But it's like 1/8 the size of a human hair. So when that light travels down, it goes to the PON card, from the PON card down to the F1 cable, which kind of looks just like that, to the hub. Once it goes to the hub, it then goes to what's called a drop terminal. From the drop terminal, it then goes to the customer's house. This is what a drop looks like. There's one single strand of fiber in here. This is what, you notice it's hard. This is what brings it to the actual optical network terminal at the customer's house, which is this. So if we were to open this up, inside, your drop would terminate in here. From there, you would either get internet via a coax cable or a Ethernet cable. When it's on the coax cable, we refer to it as MoCA. And then when it comes on Ethernet, it's just regular Ethernet. That then cabling then comes from that optical network terminal to a router. And what a router does is it hands out IP addresses to your devices on what they call the LAN side, which is your in-home network. So this, from here to here, gets assigned a wide area network IP address, which is the internet. It travels the same way back, and you get the internet. That's how you get on. So a lot of times people don't really care about this stuff. They just care that they can get on and that it's fast, right? Okay. So according to Jeff Fecht, in his book Understanding Fiber Optics, small but frail, so it can be damaged. However, it can send large amounts of data versus our old copper wiring, which did the 56K, which was very slow. So even though it sounds frail, if you look at it, the sheathing that's on it is very hard. It would take me a lot to break it. When it does break, it's very costly to fix. However, fiber is 1/10 of a human hair. Remember we spoke about that earlier, one little tiny fiber and how much information it can send. Now the problem with copper wiring is it can do what's called attenuation and cause loss of signal. So for example, when you had DSL, you can only live 15,000 feet from a central office to be able to get DSL service. Now it doesn't matter. So much data can travel down this, you can live miles upon miles upon miles away from a central office and still get great internet connection. So because of that, there's less repair. As I mentioned earlier, when it does break, it's very costly, but most of it is virtual problems that occur. So for example, remember I mentioned the PON cards in the central office. When those fail, it's a physical piece of equipment, and that's hundreds and hundreds of customers on one PON card. So when those PON cards have to be switched out, that can be a costly repair, but it's done rather quickly. It's just like pulling a cassette out and putting a cassette in. So time for repair is really quickly compared to old copper wiring. We provision virtual connections. Usually in old-time copper, it was physical connections. A technician had to go out and wire and cabling. Part of my job and what I've done is we actually do what they call virtual connections. It's all computer programming. So once again, time for repair is much quicker because everything's done virtually. I can just log onto my computer and fix whatever's broken. Now, the interesting part, and it's kind of ironic, is that the biggest failure of copper wiring is internet outages. Fiber wiring. So fiber is what brings you the internet, but the biggest thing we have is when we have a system outage in our office where we lose internet, we can't provision fiber assignments. which means we can't provision fiber service. So it's kind of ironic, that's one of the things. But once again, much more quicker to repair that than it is for copper wiring and send the tech out to fix a physical connection. So I know we've gone pretty in depth with all this information. I know all you guys really care about is that you can turn on your computer and it works fast. So now we've talked about how it's sent, from the PON card down to the central, from the central office to the PON card to a box out there, and then to the drop terminal, and then to the customer's house. And we've talked about all that and how that works and how failures can happen. It's a very complex product, but it's simple in how it works as far as bringing and delivering reliable communication. So although it has a high relevance of, when failures happen, it's big. But when we can fix them quicker, it's kind of almost seamless from the customer. It's rarely that a customer knows, because we perform network monitoring where we watch for outages. We don't wait till a customer calls in and says, hey, my stuff's not working. We already know before the customer knows, and we are able to fix it. Hence, that's why we have those virtual connections. So that's the story. That's how the internet gets to your house. So just remember, next time you go on the internet, it's working at the speed of light. So now I'm going to open up to the floor for any questions. Anybody have any questions?
On average, how fast does it take for, if one of those were to break, how fast would it take for you to get that repair done?
Well, if this physical breaks, this usually, and this can break because it can be